Today, we are looking at Mermails and Atlanteans, the new stuff from Rage of the Abyss. Hey everyone, this is Tom Box, and as per mentioned a couple seconds earlier, we're going to be talking about Mermails, Atlanteans, water, and we're going to reveal everything about the rarity and why they're so awesome. Just a quick little fun fact I just want to share with you guys that Mermail is one of the decks that I hold really dearly because it's the one deck that my brother acquired the cards for me back when I was still a student. So yeah, definitely holds a special place. That's why I still have my Megalos with me, and that's just a fun little thing I want to share. And make sure you guys hit that like button, hit subscribe, ding the notification bell, and let's go. So we're gonna do things a little bit differently today, just to get your attention. Let's start with Dominus Impulse, the most sought after trap card in Rage of the Abyss. Now hear me out, this card effect is amazing because if your opponent controls a card, you can activate this card from your hand, so functioning much like a disruption from hand. All right, and when a card effect that activates that includes an effect that special summons, you can negate that effect, and you have a trap card in the graveyard, you get to destroy that card, which is a huge effect if you activate this card from your hand, and then you get to stop your opponent from special summoning, which is huge. Not only for effect-based special summoning, such as stuff like a spell card leading into something, an activated monster effect that leads into another monster, stuff like that, you get to benefit off this card immensely. However, if you do use this card from your hand, this is where the restriction comes in. Light, earth, and wind monster effects cannot be activated for the rest of the entire duel. So that excludes the water that we're talking about here today with the Atlanteans and the Mermails. So that's why this card definitely works very well with Mermails, as the new Mermail and Atlantean cards, they do set up restrictions on water-based monster effects, so you're going to be restricted to that, and extra deck summoning of water monsters. So this is somehow fitting the bill perfectly. But yeah, this is one of the most sought after cards, and beware because this is going to definitely have some major impact when it comes to the game. Now into the lineup, we have Mermail Shadow Squad. This card looks like an Atlantean. I thought Mermails were mermaids. Well, this card is always treated as an Atlantean card. Seems like the two strategies have merged together, finally bonded in union, and so this is also considered as an Atlantean card, even though it shares the name of Mermail. So what does this card do? You can discard one card to the graveyard. That's the cost. I'm going to talk about cost a lot in this video because the Mermail and the Atlanteans, they have a lot of cost-based triggers where if they're sent as a cost for a water monster, they trigger. So they have a cost-based trigger in that sense, and so you can discard one card. That's the cost. Water monsters you currently control become level 7 until the end of this turn. This is to help you fuel and synergize into rank 7 plays, from Abyss Gaios to just negate the entire field, to the new monster, which we'll talk about in a second. So what's the other effect? Usually these Mermail or these Atlantean monsters of the lower level usually have an effect when you send them away for cost. So this one, if you send this away for the activation of a water monster effect, you get to special summon one level 4 or lower Mermail or Atlantean monster straight from your deck. So that's very strong, except for Shadow Squad, of course. And you cannot special summon anything from the extra aside from water monster for the rest of this turn. Now you can only use each effect once per turn. So unlike the other Atlanteans where they are not once per turn, this one is once per turn, so just keep that in mind. Next, we have Abyss Rhine, the Atlantean Spirit. This is a secret rare, and don't let the name fool you. This is also treated as a Mermail card. So the appearance definitely kind of gave it away because of the Mermail-esque look, you know, the elegant look from the Mermails. But what does this card do? What's her function in terms of the strategy? Well, aside from just carrying the Mermail name, you contribute this card from your hand plus one Atlantean or Mermail monster as a part of the cost. Okay, that's again really key. Take one level 7 fish, sea serpent, or aqua monster from your deck, add it to your hand, or special summon it onto the field. But for the rest of the turn, for the extra deck, you can only summon out water monsters. So it does provide you with an extra deck water lock, but it does have other effects where you can disrupt your opponent. Like what? Well, in the graveyard, during your opponent's turn, you can banish this card from your graveyard and discard one card to the graveyard, so that's the cost. The discard is also part of the cost. You can draw one card. Okay, drawing one card is fantastic. You get to refuel your hand a little bit, but what about that discard? It's a 1-for-1. Well, if you discarded a heavy infantry, Neptune, marksman, shadow squad, one of the level 3 Mermail monsters, I think you'll be able to trigger an additional effect from marksman being able to destroy face down. You also have heavy infantry being able to destroy face up cards. You're getting a whole load of effects, and you can use that as a disruption during your opponent's turn. Next, we have Area, the water channeler. So, unlike the other channeler monsters where the cost might seem a bit too heavy, you can actually benefit off of using the cost of Area. So what's the effect of Area? Well, you can discard this card and one other water monster, and that's the cost. Add one water monster from your deck to your hand with an equal to or higher level than the other discarded monster. So if you discarded a Shadow Squad, Atlantean Dragoons, you get to just search 4 and upwards, 3 and upwards of any monster. Usually you could hit that 7 to get the Megalo, the Abystus. Like those monsters you can add just from having an area. And on top of that, you're going to trigger a new chain, and then you get to add another monster on top of that, or trigger whatever that you sent to the graveyard. So this is definitely one of the scarier decks when it comes to, like, when I pay something for cost, it's always going to set up the next chain. And that's why Area, compared to the other channeler, being water definitely benefits, well, everyone that's playing water decks. And if a monster or one of your water monsters is destroyed by battle, you can special summon this card from your hand. Just a little bit of added bonus, but I think using this card as a discard outlet, much like using it like Tidal, you know, the Dragon Ruler of Waterfalls, that card is also, because it has a cost to send, you know, itself with another water monster, you know, you can start using it as a trigger outlet for, you know, additional effects. So that's why she's positioned very well as an additional searcher to the deck. Before we jump into the extra deck, we've got one Abyss spell card that we have to talk about. Abyss Sting Triana, the new equip spell. So, what does it do? It looks very aggressive with Neptune throwing that trident into the water, but it's to bring something back out. It's a teleportation device of sorts because it's going to special summon out one Mermail or Atlantean monster from your hand or graveyard. And if you do equip this card to it, so what's the negation-based effect it's going to have? Well, it doesn't exactly have one. It essentially just protects the monster from being destroyed by battle. If that does occur, you can send this card to the graveyard instead. So, you know, it has a substitution effect. So essentially just getting an additional free summon that's essentially free, right? And on top of that, this card is searchable because Abyss Megalo can search for Abyss-spell or trap cards. So this is definitely a card that you can easily use to extend your play even further, rather than just locking your opponent out with the Abyss Scales and the like of that. So what does it do in the graveyard? Well, you can banish this card from your graveyard to refuel your deck. You know, just kind of refueling it with more Fish, Sea Serpent, and Aqua that are banished in your graveyard. Take 3 of them, up to 3 of them, and put them back into your deck. Shuffle up, and you're ready to go and launch them back into the water. Well, I guess the water this time would be the graveyard. Essentially, that would be the spell card. Kind of interesting take. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how this one plays out. You know, considering it's a free special summon, but you can only activate one of these per turn. If this was not once per turn, I'd be playing a whole lot more of this. But I think one could be enough for me, personally. Onto the extra deck. First monster, let's look at the big dragon itself, Basadra Abyss, the Atlantean Dragon Lord. Now, this is an Atlantean monster, but it is not a Mermail. Now, it requires 3 level 7 monsters to make, so it's pretty heavy. And Basadra now has grown 2 extra heads onto its neck, I think. Did the original one have it? You guys can check the card art yourself. But once per turn, you can also Exceed summon Basadra, the Atlantean Dragon Lord, by using 1 Atlantean or 1 Mermail Exceed monster you control. In other words, much like Divine Arsenal Aezu Sky Thunder, you can just slap it on top of one of those correct materials, and then you transfer the rest of the materials to it. So you can detach 2 monsters from this card, send 1 water monster from your hand or deck to the graveyard. That's the cost. Sending a water monster from the deck to the graveyard is a cost. That's fantastic. Return up to 3 cards your opponent controls back to the hand. This is a full-on board wipe, non-destructive, non-targeting board wipe to push away opponent's monster. It's rising the tides, if you will, and definitely it's putting a tsunami to wipe away your opponent's board. Very, very strong. Now, if this card is Exceed Summon and sent to the graveyard, discard 1 card to the graveyard, special summon 3 level 3 or lower Fish, Sea Serpent, or Aqua monsters from your deck and or graveyard. So even if you somehow remove this monster and it just ends up in the graveyard, you're going to be able to splash back. You know, the tide's going to recede and you're going to realize, hey, there's a bunch of monsters that came back with it. If it's like Marksman, Heavy Infantry, I don't know, Diva, there's a lot of stuff that can come back that could just give you a full recovery play. I think it's very, very dangerous considering they're all considered as special summons and their effects are not negated as well. So you've got that going for you. Ooh, very, very spicy monster indeed. Next monster, we have Mermail King Neptune. It seems like Neptune has finally done it from being the prince of the Atlanteans to the king of mermails, and it has 3 arrows right at the bottom, which does not open any pointers to your opponent. So what does it require? 2+ monsters, including a fish, sea serpent, or an aqua monster, so you can definitely climb up from it. And your opponent cannot target water monsters. This card points to with card effects. So aside from just working well with Mermails, I guess it does protect other water-based decks from getting targeted by card effects, which is great. And then there's the additional effect where you can use each of the following effects once per turn if a water monster is sent to the graveyard to activate a card or effect. So if something is used to pay cost, since this is not a quick effect, it's going to require a new chain. You can take one of your Abyss equip spell from your deck or in your graveyard and add it to your hand or equip it to this card. So you can use it to kind of help you gain the protection, or use it to kind of gain like the Abyss scale to stop your opponent from being able to resolve their first spell or their first trap card or something along those lines, because that's what, if I recall correctly, what some of those older Mermail equip spells, that's what they do. So this is really cool. But if this card in its own possession is destroyed by a card, you get to add a Mermail or an Atlantean monster from your deck to your hand, which is really good. Seems like a lot of synergy, a lot of recovery based play, because it is still water based. So typically a lot of water based decks do have effects that can do that, but in particular Mermail and I guess the Atlanteans, they're especially known for that. So yeah, here it is. This is your new Link boss almost. That's it for the reveals here. If you guys enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up button, hit subscribe, ding that notification bell. Personally, I'm looking forward to trying this stuff out because Mermail, again, is the deck that my brother helped me acquire back when I was a student. So it's really nice to have family members support your hobby. And yeah, definitely was one of my favorite archetypes at the time, and it still is. That's why I kept all those Megalos, and I'm going to try it out. And if you'd like to play a deck that maintains a lot of its resources and sets up chain after chain after chain, this might be the deck for you. Anyways, that's all I got for this one. Hopefully you guys have fun opening up your Rage of the Abyss. Best of luck at your YCSs, and I'll see you all in the next one.